Hello, my name's Chris Hall. I'm a state representative from Sioux City, Iowa, a Democrat that represents House District 13. I've been asked to give an overview and a little bit of presentation on fundraising. And I think one of the more important things to start that presentation with is what fundraising helps a candidate to do. Fundraising on its own is, of course, something that a lot of people shy away from. It's nobody's favorite thing to go into a campaign, and nobody identifies fundraising as the one top of their list thing that they're really excited about. But fundraising is an essential thing for any campaign and any candidate. It doesn't matter if you're from a swing district or a deep Republican red seat. It doesn't matter actually if you're even in a safe Democratic seat. Fundraising is essential because it helps us to get our message out. Getting your message out for a first-time candidate is essential. You have to introduce yourself, you have to help build up your name ID, and you also help build a relationship with the people that you hope to vote for you. You may have already a strong community profile, but reiterating certain pieces of your profile, making sure that people have heard your name, and also making sure that you have the ability to respond in a tough campaign are all essential things. You can do that a number of different ways, whether it's mail or digital advertisements or in a really competitive race, even TV. But the thing that backs up all of those opportunities is having money in the bank. Fundraising is something that, as I mentioned, a lot of people shy away from. And the partisan lens that I would also encourage you to think about it through is the fact that Democrats need money to equalize our position. Rarely do we outraise our opponents in the Republican Party, but if we fight to break even, if we also really outwork our opponents and work to build up enough fundraising and money in the bank to get our message out, that is where it makes the difference for us. So what does it take? There are a few different skills that I think are very essential to good fundraising. First is organizational skills and event building skills. Second would be being a competitive person can always help you, whether that's competing with yourself or choosing to compete with your opponent. And third is a personal touch. Now back to the organizational skills and event building skills. Being able to track who you've spoken to, making sure that you have a well-organized campaign that is sending thank you notes or follow-up notes after you've gotten off a phone call with somebody, making sure that you know the dollar amount that was asked or pledged, and also being able to put together successful events, whether that's a low-dollar coffee or a reception and meet and greet at a bar or restaurant, doing a house party and helping the event hosts to put together something successful for you, or even working with local vendors. You want to be well organized and convey professionalism in how you're putting together an event. I think that one of the pieces that each candidate eventually unlocks is what works best for them and what their comfort zone might include. Now, fundraising is not really an exciting or fun part of a campaign. Sometimes it means that you're sitting in a room by yourself on the telephone for the whole of an afternoon or an evening making phone calls. So how do you make it fun, and how do you keep it interesting and actually help you to move the campaign in a positive direction? One of the things that I've always encouraged people to think about is that for me, when I started campaigning, I had many friends, many family members, people that I wanted to keep up with, but actually maybe had not done a great job of keeping up with. And so I would encourage you to think about it as a chance just to catch up with friends, family, loved ones, and people who are there to support you and readily want to support you, they just haven't been asked. If you approach somebody and say, I'm moving next weekend and I've got a lot of furniture to load up in the moving truck, they're probably not thrilled to help you move and obligate their whole Saturday to get sweaty and hot and pack up furniture. But what they know at the core of that ask is that you care and you value your friendship with them. And that's why most people will say yes if you ask them to help move a truckload of furniture. It's very much the same thing with a campaign. If I call up a good friend from college or an old colleague or perhaps an aunt or an uncle that I haven't seen since my last family function, chances are that we have something pleasant to visit about anyways. I'd like to tell them how life is going, any personal updates that I've got, and I'm excited to tell them about my campaign. When I ask them for a dollar amount, it's just underscoring the value of our relationship. I'd like to ask for your help. This is a way that you can help move me in a positive direction to do something good for my community, to help me do something professionally that I'm interested in. And more often than not, people will be honest with you in how they respond. If you ask for $100, they'll generally say, yes, I can do $100. Or if they can't, they might be able to say, I can't do that right now, but I could give you 50 now and 50 later. All the same, it's a pleasant way to catch up with people, and it helps move your campaign in a positive direction. If you're reaching out to friends and family, I think it is the natural place to start. You want to look at your list, and for me, when I ran the first time, I was fairly young, and the list that I began with was actually the invitation list for my sister's wedding. She had gotten married just 1 year before I chose to run, and so we had a list that was updated. It had good contact information, good addresses, and it was an easy starting point. From there, I went through my personal friendships. I went to professional friendships and colleagues that I knew liked and respected me and wanted to be helpful. And I started thinking through and looking at other donors who I know had maybe supported a legislator in my district that came before me, people who were strong Democrats and interested in retaining the seat and making it a Democratic seat in the legislature. And from there, you can kind of think creatively about who has a stake in this, who wants to see Democrats win, and how can I reach out to them and introduce myself. Even if you don't get a pledge in your first ask, it's important to ask, and you gain a lot of respect and also good buzz as a candidate by making the ask itself. If they don't pledge right then, at least you've made the introduction, and chances are they're going to tell other people that they visited with you and that they are very much interested in seeing where your race progresses and where it goes. Another approach that is very important is online fundraising. As a candidate, when you file your papers, one of the next steps to do immediately after that is start a bank account. Once you have a bank account, the pledges have somewhere they can go. And when you go to that bank account, you can get the account information and go to a site like ActBlue, which is widely used by Democrats at the national and state and local levels. And you can set up an online point for donations to be made. ActBlue is easy. They're very credible and easy to work with. They take a small fee of each donation. So if you have the option, I still encourage people to put that check in the mail as opposed to putting it online. But online fundraising sometimes is the best way to make something fun and make something in the moment. A lot of candidates will do things like a birthday fundraiser. Chris is turning 35 next year. Will you donate $35 to help his campaign? You can do things that maybe are back to school oriented. You can do them around a certain national moment or an issue that has popped up. Or you can also organize them around something that's happening in your community. And maybe you want people from afar who aren't in the community still able to donate. Online fundraising, you can link through a Twitter or Facebook account. And the most important part about it is to have fun. If you're having fun, that comes through. People can tell that you're doing it in a way that is engaging. And you also are really giving them an opportunity to be engaged with the campaign from afar, where maybe other solicitations like mail or phone call are for a high dollar amount. Online fundraising helps with a $5 and $10 donation that can add up in a big sense over a period of time. Organizational tools, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I think that some of the fundamental tools are maybe an Excel spreadsheet, or even I know a lot of folks who just do it with a 3-ring binder that help you to track your pledges. If I call somebody up and they commit to a dollar amount, I would generally follow that up with a note that says, dear such and such, I enjoyed our conversation on the phone. Thanks so much for taking a few minutes out of your day to visit. I appreciate your pledge for X number of dollars. And it helps them to be reminded of what they pledged to, and also helps them commit to it as a certain goal that you've set and they've agreed to. A lot of political donors are also very much in the rhythm of making donations, and it's not altogether unexpected for somebody, a big donor or somebody who's very active in Democratic politics, to get 3 or 5 or 10 fundraising calls from different candidates over a month. So if you follow up with those donors with a note that specifies the amount they pledged, that's going to be helpful to them in addition to helping your campaign. A thank you note is, of course, encouraged and always appropriate if you have somebody that donates to your campaign. And I think keeping that log of checks received, how many pledges were made, how many actually came through, is an appropriate thing to do also. You can generally resolicit a donor. I would say, depending on the length of your campaign, if you announce a year out from the election, you should probably check in with them quarterly. If you announce just 5 or 6 months out from an election, I think that it's important to try for 2 to 3 donations and try to time them out in a way that is both thoughtful of the amount a person has given, their capacity to give more, and also the urgency of a deadline. Everybody understands that campaigns are stressful, and during that last month of an election, they want to help, and they know it's crunch time. Don't be afraid to solicit somebody, because the worst that they can say is, I'm tapped out, I've given to a lot of candidates, or now is not a great moment, but they generally will appreciate you checking in and asking. It's also a great opportunity to update them on the campaign if it's been a few months since they've heard from you. I think the amount that you ask is probably something that each person is going to be the best judge of. If it's a close family relationship, you're not going to do permanent damage by asking them an amount and having them say, I can't do that. If it is somebody who has donated to other campaigns before, you can check online and go to the Iowa Campaign Ethics and Disclosure Board, and they have a searchable database. So if I am looking for Jim Smith in Sioux City who has donated to other legislative candidates, I can see the amount that Jim has generally given to somebody at a state house or state senate level. Maybe Jim is comfortable giving $100 to a state representative where they give $500 or $1,000 to a gubernatorial or statewide candidate. You can check that on the Campaign and Ethics Disclosure Board site. Doing a little bit of research on the front end before you call donors at that level is going to help you. It'll tell you where they've given in the past, and also give you a target to shoot for without feeling uncomfortable about the ask. Cold calling people is often, I think, uncomfortable for folks, but don't figure it much as a cold call as an opportunity to really introduce yourself. If you get to the portion of the call where you make that ask, great. If you don't, hopefully you've put yourself on their radar and they've got a sense of your campaign moving forward. Very rarely has a campaign call or a cold call gone wrong for me, and I've rarely heard of them going poorly for others. On my notes, I mentioned it briefly, but I would want to underscore also a deadline. Throughout a campaign, there are different disclosure dates where a candidate has to show how much money they've raised and how much money they have in the bank. These are real deadlines that show and demonstrate your credibility as a candidate. Folks at the state party level, folks in the state senate or House Truman Fund will monitor these levels. And if you are doing a great job on your own as a candidate, it starts to bring in additional dollars, and a snowball effect kind of comes around. So don't feel afraid to use these deadlines, and let people know on May 30th I have a final deadline, and after that date I have to publicly disclose how much money's in the bank. Use that as a deadline and plan back from it. So if I know I've got 1 week left until that last deadline, look at your pledge tracker, see how many outstanding pledges there are, and call the folks who have already made a pledge and try to get those last dollars in the door rather than cold calling during the last week. If you're 2 or 3 weeks out from a deadline, Maybe think about holding an event that helps give you a shot in the arm. Maybe it's an appropriate time to have a meet and greet or small dollar fundraiser for $5 or $10, and it helps get some little dollars in the door before the deadline hits. Generally, I plan back from deadlines. The first thing that I do during a campaign is look at my firm deadlines throughout, from day one all the way to the election, and I plan around each of those campaign deadlines. Some of them are financial, some of them are big events like a Labor Day picnic or other things. But setting up a timeline helps you to stay on track, and especially for finance and fundraising, it'll help you to stay on track for the goals that you set for yourself and the things that'll help you bring further dollars in the door once you hit those goals. There's a phrase in politics, many people will have heard of Emily's List, and it's a national organization that helps female candidates run for office. Emily's List also stands for early money is like yeast. It helps the dough rise. If you get a few dollars in the door early and people start to see that you're really competitive, you are looking to set a mark and hold yourself to that as a candidate early in the campaign, people take note of that. Other national organizing groups, state level groups like Flip It and others will also see that you're a credible candidate running for a seat, and they will offer oftentimes based on who is competitive and who has a chance to win. So early money is like yeast is a political phrase, but there's a lot of truth to it. And I think many successful candidates will have noticed that in the early days of a campaign, it kind of feels like you're out there alone and you're maybe competing with yourself and a mark that you've set. And a little bit later into the summer and early fall, sometimes checks will just start to appear in the mail, or somebody else will be offering to host fundraisers for you. And that's because the work that you've done early in your own campaign and the fact that the snowball has started to roll downhill. It's a fun time in the campaign to see, and it's something that will happen for you if you work hard in the early days. As far as the personal touch, I encourage candidates to think about keeping it personal. A small touch goes a long way, and even if you don't end up getting a pledge or a commitment from a big donor, everybody also likes to feel courted. If you've got a big event coming up and you know that you are building a host committee for it, maybe that host committee includes 5 individuals or couples, each at a level of $500, for example. Use that as your opportunity to call as many people as you can and say, I'm putting together an event, here's a host committee, would you like to be part of it? And even if they can't do the full $500, the courtship, the appreciation for that ask, and the personal touch and following up on it is going to be appreciated. As far as different events, I encourage each candidate to think about doing one low-dollar event, one high-dollar event, and considering different geographies. The fact that you might be running in a swing seat out in the far corner of the state does not preclude you from having an event in Des Moines as well. I will often have a house party in Sioux City, and a week or two later I'll have a house party in Des Moines. And it's nice because I'm reaching different audiences and I'm not tapping out the same group of donors. Oftentimes, by asking a friend here in the Des Moines area to host a house party for me, they invite their own friends and colleagues and people I might not have a connection to, but they're excited to meet a new candidate, hear a speech, and hear about the overall effort in running for an office. So different geographies can help you to reach new people and build out your network. I think that different groups often will also want to help out. Sometimes, depending on the issue or your own background, you could hold an event with educators, with labor organizations, with doctors or people in healthcare professions. Be creative. Think about different ways to reach new groups, to spread your own name and get it out there. I would also say, just as far as some of the lessons learned, my early campaigns were some of the hard ones, where you really have competitive races. The first time or two that you put your name on a ballot, it's rough. You have to figure out the thing that keeps wind in your sails, and you also have to make sure that you're taking good care of yourself, because fundraising can be a bit of a grind. But like I've said, as you get money in the bank, as you figure out the budget that you want to operate with, if it's postcards, if it's radio ads, if it's just door literature to help your door knockers go, look at what you'd like to do a month or two down the line, figure out a dollar amount from working with a local printer or somebody else that kind of handles that type of task, and make your budget in action. Let people know what they're contributing to. If I'm sending out a mail solicitation, I'll sometimes say $25 helps keep us on the doors for 1 week with door literature. $100 buys an ad on radio. $250 helps us with an overall goal toward our fundraising event. $500 helps to put us on TV. And it helps people to feel included in your campaign. It helps to let them know what their dollars are going towards so that it's tangible and they feel part of the overall success. Every campaign is a team effort and everybody is going to rely on one another, but we each have different roles. If you are the candidate, just recognize that you as the candidate have some work to do, and other people recognize their roles too. As supporters, as door knockers, as donors, we each have a part in the team effort, and it's not a bad thing. It's just an acknowledgement of how we work together to win. Overall, I hope that this has been helpful to you. I hope that your fundraising goes successfully, and there are many people who are going to be out there willing to help, willing to work with you. So have fun, enjoy, and good hunting.